Welcome back to Hasbro's Hide. Doing a quick scale study because I got a new scale, and that's this Reloadr Marksman. I saw a review on Johnny's reloading bench that I thought was pretty good, and he seemed to be pretty happy with it, so I thought I'd try this one because the other one I've been using that read to .02 that I showed in previous videos does a good job. It still does a good job, but I got tired of it drifting all the time. And so I got this one thinking, okay, it might be better. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case. So what I do is to show you a little bit of testing I'm going to do on it. So first thing we're going to do is a bit of a simplified gauge R and R study. So we're going to weigh one weight 10 different times on each of these scales and see how they agree and then see how they repeat. Now they've all been zeroed with the same set of weights. Okay, and these are the weights from the RCBS Chargemaster Lite. And so calibrated them all using that, re-zeroed everything, and then we're going to check. And so I've done the first couple here already on this one. And so it's repeating, the new Calox scale is repeating pretty well. And so far it hasn't missed at all. Now I've shut off all airflow in the hide up here and just trying to keep things stable and steady. And so far, that's the first 4 times it's repeated. So let it zero, put it back in the middle of the scale. And that one goes 10.001. I bet you it's slightly off center. Try it just again. Yeah, 10.000. So, you know, many of these scales are sensitive to keeping them on center. This one's not supposed to be, but most are because the load cell's right in the middle. And depending on the support of the platen, then you may see a drift or not. So we'll try to keep it all right there in the center as close as we can and continue this pattern all the way through. And we'll do 10 in a row. And it'd be pretty boring, won't it? It'll be the first 10 are going to be, as long as I keep it centered, are going to be, I bet you, exactly on. Yep, 10. That is 9. Number 9. And back to 10. So that's 10 in a row, exactly 10 grams, which is our check weight. So that's a good result. So now let's go and we'll check the Reloadr Marksman. Now, I'll repeat this with different weights going on up when I show the data. So I'll do a 10 and I'll do a 50 gram weight and we'll check. But we're using the same exact weight. So when I use the Chargemaster Lite, we'll use just one of them and we'll use the same weight through the whole system to try to keep some variation out of our results. So we'll zero that and then we'll start with the Reloadr Marksman. Now it's not supposed to be sensitive, but I'll try to keep it right in the middle. Put it in the right units would be good. And it says 10. I have been noticing though, these scales have all been on for more than an hour. Okay, so they're all stabilized. But I have been noticing this is drifting, and it's just annoyingly drifting. And it's supposed to be a really good scale, but so far, I'm not impressed. We'll see. All right. Oh, you see that drifted down? It read 10, and then it drifted down in weight. I'll have to watch that. Yeah, there it went to 9.990, and I didn't touch it, so that's what we're going to put in here. There it goes again. Now we get 9.995. And it dropped to 990 given it time. And we're back to 10. If you see how annoying this gets, and it dropped to 9.998, you know, I doubt it's air currents. Everything's not moving up here. I guess we could test that, right? Maybe it is air currents. But it should stabilize when things quit moving. So nothing's moving and I'm getting radically different results. It's really frustrating and disappointing. All right. So yeah, the results will show that it's that really is not making me happy. So let's go over here and we'll check the RCBS Chargemaster Lite and put it into the right units here. And it's as expected, 10. Back to 10. And back to 10. So we'll continue this all the way through the Chargemaster Lite, and we'll come back and look at a few with the 50 gram weights. All right, continue on with our study. Now on the new Calox scale, I've already done the 50 gram weight straight onto the platen down here, as well as putting a pan on there and then zeroing it and adding the 50 gram weight to see if the platen itself is sensitive to very low loads on it. So we at least get a little bit of weight on it, and this is the heaviest pan I have to set on there, and so doing that, and we'll look at that data as it goes. But now we're going to move over to the Reloadr Marksman. And so we'll do our study here, checking the 50 gram weights, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so that's a good first result. $49.995. All right, 49.995 again. Trying to give it plenty of time to stabilize. Make sure we get a true reading. Okay, that one read high and came back to 0. Came back to 50. All right, 50 again. And one more. All right, so that's the test for that one. We'll move on to the RCBS and check it next. and I expect it to repeat every time. It seems to be much more consistent. Oops, as soon as I say that, 50.01. All right, 50 on that one. $50.01. $50 on that. And 50 on that. So we'll do the last few of that and finish. Now, one other thing to note here in all this, I'll go ahead and do the pan studies on each one of these, have some weight on the platen and see how they repeat. But one thing to note is too, to try to knock out vibration, I have two mats. There's a felt type bench mat here, then this neoprene rubber type mat, and then the Chargemaster Lite's got a rigid body to it and adjustable feet, so it's leveled and sitting on one in the rear. But the ones in the front seem to be affected a little bit by the sponginess of the rubber when you put weight down, like it was tilting and compressing the rubber. So I put them underneath hard bases, and it seems to have stabilized them till they repeat a bit better. So try and take out variables of vibration and things like that as well, and then, like I said, I shut off all the airflow up here to try to minimize air currents. So we'll finish this and then we'll take a look at the data. Now we're going to look at some of the data from our scale study. And so we've done a 10-gram weight on the platen itself, then we've done a 50-gram weight study on each of these platens. Now, we did RCBS, we did the new Calox, and then we did the Reloadr Marksman as well. And then we did 50 grams with a pan on, the heaviest pan that I had, to give the scale some weight, because all these tend to have their most air at the extremes, either really small or really high. They're typically sort of optimized in the middle, and that's where you see that calibration come out. Well, that's in most cases anyway. So here's the data. And you can see up on top. Now, what I've done is converted grams and grains to the right there. And so if you look, the first column will be the new Calox scale. The next one over, the middle column, will be the Reloadr Marksman scale, and then the far right will be the RCBS Chargemaster Lite. And you can see then in grains and then in grams the results. Now at 10 grams, the Reloadr Marksman is the worst by far. And you have an error. If you convert it over and look to the right then in grains, which is for reloading what we care about the most, it ends up being basically 0.29. Now it's a 0.1 error in standard deviation, but in statistics you want to do at least plus or minus 3 sigma. Okay, so that gives you sort of the majority of the bell curve where things are going to fall. Right, so the majority, and you'll clip just the corners, and you'll have confidence then that your answer will be in those middle values. So if you look at plus or minus 3 standard deviations or 3 sigma, it's plus or minus 0.3 grains. That's a lot. I mean, we're trying to keep our charge separations typically 0.2 or 0.3 away when we're doing load studies, where you might do 25 grains and you go 25.2 or 25 grains to 25.3. Well, its error is more than the range that we're looking at by a long shot on the lower charge weights. And then, but the new Calox scale and the RCBS Chargemaster Lite, perfect. They didn't have any detectable error. The values are so small if they were there. In fact, there were no errors on this first one. They all read exactly 10 grains. And so that was a good result for them at 10 grams. So now we go to 50 grams, and we start to see the data change a little bit. And so if you look at the grain side of things, we'll look at the right side of that chart down the grain. Well, then the new Calox has a 0.04 grain standard deviation. So if you do plus or minus 3, that means it's going to go plus 0.13 or minus 0.13. And so you'll be accurate to just over 0.1 grains in your total spread, what you would expect. Now this is a 10 weight sample. It's not the best. You should have probably 30, but it's a smaller sample, so chances are you'll have just a little bit more variation in that. But it's just an indication here of where things lie. Well, then we go to the Reloadr Marksman then, and it has exactly the same range on this one. And, you know, these are rounded off to hundredths of a grain, but we have 0.04 for one standard deviation, then plus or minus 3 would be plus 0.11 or minus 0.11. So in fact, it's technically slightly better at that weight setting at 50 grams than the new Calox was, but they're close, very close. But the RCBS Chargemaster Lite then had a slightly worse result. It had a standard deviation of 0.07 grains, and then if you do plus or minus 3 sigma, well, it's going to be 0.22 plus or minus grains, and that's at 50 grains. And this gets into why then you want to have a pan on there, because the pan will add a little bit additional weight. And as you go into the next study then, the last one there shown, this is 50 gram weight, the same 50 gram weight, by the way, in all this study, like I showed in the last video, with the pan. And so you add some weight to the study. And so now the new Calox gets even more accurate. It's down to 0.01, okay? And then it's plus or minus 0.03 grains. So it really honed in, and it really liked just having a little bit of weight on the platen to start with, and then do your mass check, your weight check on that. Now the Reloadr Marksman, well, it's a little better, 0.06, but that still means when you do plus or minus 3 standard deviations, it's plus or minus 0.17 grains. So you're back to close to that 0.2, plus or minus 0.2 range or so. And then the RCBS Chargemaster Lite, it kind of liked having a little bit of weight on the platen as well, and it gets to within a half a grain, 0.05 grains. And then you do plus or minus 3 standard deviations, and it's 0.15, which is, you know, close to, I'm sure they say plus or minus 0.1 grains, if I remember right on the literature on that one. And this one doesn't promise it, it just tells you what it can read. And I don't believe this one says its accuracy, it just tells you what it can read as well. So, of the three, this new Calox is the best in our short study here. Now, it's not all-inclusive, it's just a quick look at some of the to diagnose some of the problems I was seeing on this new scale here, this Reloadr Marksman. So, I actually ordered another one, a Brifit, and we're going to get it in and test it as well. And then this one is probably going to go back. I did have accuracy and see it changing like that. I saw it constantly changing. 0.2 after it's been zeroed and on for 3 hours, I'd be weighing, and next thing it'd come down, it was off 0.2, and then back and forth. That's just not acceptable for what we need, and yet that's what this is made for. Now, like I say, I saw this recommendation and the Brifit from Johnny's Reloading Bench as well. He did a really good study on these scales and in depth with other things I'm not going to cover, but he got better results. So do I have just a bad scale? I don't know. We'll see. I tried it on soft surfaces to knock out vibration. I turned off all airflow in the room. That didn't help. I put it on a hard surface on top of a soft surface to kill vibration but still have something more solid for it to register when you push down on and zero it. Because I have seen these smaller scales, when you push to zero, you deflect the scale, and that they're sensitive enough to see that. And so, you know, maybe some technique, holding it down, whatever, but that doesn't have the problem. And of course that doesn't. It's a much bigger, more rigid body and setup. So anyway, that's our results. So far, yeah, not so good on the Reloadr Marksman. But we'll see. Maybe when I get the Brifit in, maybe I'll send this one back and see if they'll give me a replacement.